Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the University of Missouri of St. Louis. My name is Eamon Wall, and I am the Smurfit-Stone Professor in Irish Studies here at UMSL Global. And everybody is most welcome today. We have our students here from our British Literature Bronte class. We have some faculty members here, we have some staff members here, and we have people from our great and greater St. Louis community. So everybody is most welcome. And so a special thanks to Bob L. over here. Bob puts together all the programming for us and made today's event possible, and to our fearless leader Patricia Zahn over here as well for all she does for us. It is the end of the semester almost, and it's a quieter time for faculty, a busier time for students because they have to write their papers and everything. But so we thought we would end the semester with a concert, and. So today the concert will run for about 40 or 45 minutes. And just before I introduce our performers, just let me remind you of a few events taking place next semester. Our study abroad program in Galway will continue in June for its 25th year. So if anybody would like to sign up for the study abroad program, you are most welcome to do so. On the 13th of March, we'll have our gala concert in the Toohill, and this year the performer will be Eileen Ivers and her band. And we also have two writers coming in April, Rosemary Jenkinson from Belfast and Luke Morgan from Galway, and they do a reading for us on the 18th of April. So today we have two outstanding musicians here in Eileen Gannon and Robert Ryan. And we owe a special debt of gratitude to Eileen and to Robert, because during COVID we wondered how we would keep our programming going, and Robert and Eileen stepped into the breach and got us started doing our concerts via Zoom. And so they were so successful, we've continued with them since. So Eileen Gannon is a St. Louis native and has been lighting up the scene here for many years. She's a wonderful and harpist, and she's represented Ireland at the World Expos in Shanghai, China, and Milan, and she launched her debut solo CD, The Glory Days Are Over, in 2017. And she is also associated and director of the St. Louis Irish Arts here in St. Louis. And we are honoured and thrilled to have with us today Eileen Gannon, who is the founder of St. Louis Irish Arts. And St. Louis. Helen. Yeah, Helen is here, and Eileen is here, and Helen is. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm putting years on you. Forgive me, but this is the largest Irish music school in North America. So it's a wonderful resource to have here. And also our second musician today, Robert Ryan, is also part of the diaspora. He grew up in London in a thriving Irish community, and he was encouraged to learn the tin whistle at a young age and took up the fiddle at the age of 8, learning from the great Clare fiddler Brendan Mulcair. And in particular, over the years, Robert has developed an interest and enthusiasm for the music of the Slieve Lucra region of Ireland. And he has a deep love of dance music associated with that area. So before I make any more faux pas, I will just welcome Eileen Gannon and Robert Ryan here to perform for us.
Thank you very much. Those were a selection of hop jigs, which is an old and almost forgotten tune type. And the reason why we still have those tunes to play is that they were collected in a number of volumes from around 1816 to 1860. About 1,500 tunes were collected by one gentleman called George Petrie, and we recorded an album in 2021 with a lot of music from this Petrie collection, a lot of old and obscure tunes, and that's where we found the first and the third of those quite unusual tunes, hop jigs. They no longer have a dance that goes with them. All of the music that we play, nearly all of the music we play here is going to be dance music, Irish dance music. So I will try not to talk too much, but I do need to say thank you to Eamon and to Bob for having us here. And in relation to the album that we brought out in 2021, we've been very lucky to receive a generous grant from the Regional Arts Commission to transcribe all of the music on our album into a tune book arranged for violin and harp, and that is a work in progress at the moment. That being said, those tunes are actually the only tunes from that album that we're going to be playing today. Everything else is fairly new material for us, and we will continue with a set of jigs. The first of these I actually got from a tune book. It's by a fiddle player called Joe Liddy. It's called The Brickyard. And the second is a composition of Eddie Kelly. And then the third tune is a traditional tune called Creeping Docken. very much. So those were some regular jigs, regular good old-fashioned Irish jigs, and we will carry on with the other most popular dance tune type, which is a reel. 3 of them, in fact. We'll just do 2, yeah? We'll just do 2, yeah? Thank you very much.
There are a few brave people doing some hups there, but you are welcome to do in Irish music. It's not a terribly formal music most of the time, so if you feel moved to just make a noise, it's very acceptable.
Hup. So we are going to continue with a song. We did a little mini tour earlier on this year, and we went down to, we were in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana and I went to New Orleans for the first time, and I was very excited about that because I always wanted to see an alligator. And I got that opportunity down there, and while we were preparing for our tour, I thought that we should probably sing the one and only song that is part of the Irish singing tradition that mentions alligators. It's not really an Irish song, as you may have guessed, because we don't have a whole lot in the way of alligators in Ireland. But it was sung by a couple of very famous Irish singers back in the revival of the 1970s. So by default, it's become a traditional Irish song. No one really knows when it was written. It's probably Civil War era. Not entirely sure, but it mentions New Orleans and alligators. So I guess you have to imagine that the person singing the song is somehow Irish, you know. Leap of faith. 'Twas on one bright March morning I bid New Orleans adieu, and I took the road to Jackson Town, my fortunes to renew. I cursed all foreign money, no credit could I gain, which filled my heart with longing for the lakes of Pontchartrain. I stepped on board of a railroad car beneath the morning sun, and I rode the rods till evening and laid me down again. All strangers there, no friends to me, till a dark girl towards me came, and I fell in love with a Creole girl by the lakes of Pontchartrain. I said, my pretty Creole girl, my money here's no good, and if it weren't for the alligators, I'd sleep out in the woods. You're welcome here, kind stranger, our house is very plain, but we never turned a stranger out by the lakes of Pontchartrain. Well, she took me into her mammy's house and treated me right well. The hair upon her shoulders in jet black ringlets fell, to try to paint her beauty, I'm sure 'twould be in vain. So handsome was my Creole girl by the lakes of Pontchartrain. I asked her if she'd marry me. She said this could never be, for she had got a love
She said that she would wait for him, and true she would remain. So faithful was my Creole girl by the lakes of Pontchartrain. So fare thee well, my Creole girl, I never shall see you more. But I shan't forget your kindness in the cottage by the shore, and at each social gathering a flowing bowl I'll drain, and I'll drink a health to my Creole girl by the lakes of Pontchartrain.
Thank you very much. I just realised that it turns into a drinking song at the end, so maybe that might be the connection. Okay, we're going to continue with some more dance tunes. We're going to continue with my favourite kind of tunes from the Slieve Lucra region of Ireland, which is where the counties of Limerick, which is where Eileen's mother comes from, Cork and Kerry all meet around the River Blackwater, and it's a very rich, culturally rich region that's been associated with kind of music and poetry and song and dance in Ireland for hundreds of years. And they're mad for polkas there, so we'll play a few of those. I got this first tune from a great concertina and accordion player called Timmy Connors. Ready? Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to continue on now with another piece of the Irish music tradition, which is the harp compositions that were very prevalent in the 16th and 17th centuries. The most famous of the harper composers was Turlough O'Carolan. He lived from 1670 to 1738, and he composed, I've been trying to remember the years for, he was quizzing me, what were the years he was born and died?
You might have guessed that I'm a history nerd.
He's the history guy. But he composed hundreds and hundreds of melodies for his patrons. So this was one I dug up during the pandemic. I was looking through the book and trying to find one I hadn't heard before, and this one caught my eye, and it's called Mrs. Judge.
very much. A bit of Baroque and roll. So, we have not a whole lot longer. Let me do the slides. All right, we'll carry on with my other favourite kind of tune. A tune type that is named after a particular move that you do while you're dancing. You slide your foot across the floor, so it's called a slide.
And they're very fun to dance, especially if you have someone very strong pulling you around.
I got this first tune in this set from a tune book, and it's actually facsimiles of sheets of music. That there was a great Schlieve Lucre fiddle master called Podrick O'Keefe, and he used his own system of notation, which he wrote down for his students, which included the notes to play and how to bow it. So it's actually a very complex, very clever system of notation, which if you don't, you can use without needing to learn how to read music. And I learned that from a facsimile of that. So it's I'm kind of trying to play it as close to the way that he imagined it. And this would have been written down probably in the 1930s, 1940s. So you know, it's kind of it's an interesting way of how music written on the page in one form or another can kind of come to life in the hands of a musician, which is something that I find fascinating. It's a lot to remember, so hopefully we'll get there. So yeah, set of slides. you very much. Well, we have come to the end of our allotted time, but we have kind of planned to take any questions, any thoughts you guys have, any nerdy history stuff I am happy to talk about.
I figured that would be the first question. So these are called levers. This is a lever harp or a lever harp. They say lever in Ireland and they say lever in the States. And they just raise the pitch of the string a half step. So it's like going from the white key to the black key on the piano. And it just saves you having to have that many more strings. And most Irish music is kind of centered around the key of D and a little bit on either side of it, so you don't really need the complete scale that a piano has.
In Irish music, we tend to play in a specific number of keys. There's not, we wouldn't be using the full range of notes that are available to a violinist, primarily because of what's possible to play on certain fixed pitch instruments. So the tin whistle or the penny whistle is kind of generally the instrument that nearly all Irish musicians start on, and that kind of limits you to a certain number of keys. And the same thing with the Irish bagpipes, the uilleann pipes, and the concert flute. They tend, it's extremely difficult to play flat keys and stuff like that. So as a consequence, most Irish music tends to be played within a certain range of keys that are available on those instruments.
Yes.
So even though I can answer your question every time I see you every week, I was thinking about duets.
Uh-huh.
And since we have two children that play the fiddle and the concertina,
Mm-hmm.
so I really like the fiddle and the harp together. So the polka was really, really fun.
Yep, those are our
Like
favorite.
plucking and stuff. So I don't know if you could just talk a little bit about the different, how those came together, the different duets. Obviously, this is the instruments that you guys play, but they're so beautiful together.
Mhm.
And why some people say like, oh, those are great, two great instruments to go together. Like people have said, oh, it's great that they play the fiddle and the concertina. And does the harp, do you like playing the fiddle? Not just Rod, but do you like playing?
I do like playing with the fiddle. I like, so when he bows two strings at the same time, that sort of like determines what chords I can play that will fit with what he's playing. So it sort of streamlines the endless possibilities of what I could be doing. So I like to let the person I'm playing with inform what I do. And also the harp goes with everything.
That kind of brings me to my point, obviously, which is that the fiddle goes with everything. It's we think of the harp as it is the symbol of Ireland. It's the official symbol. It's on all of the Irish government paperwork, and it's long been associated with Ireland. But the actual harp that the symbol originates from is not the same instrument that we have here at all. It's a completely different. It's a different tuning for starters. It also used very high tension wire strings, which had to be plucked with long fingernails. They use very different techniques, and this harp is actually really something that's been developed from the mid 20th century onwards, or late 20th century onwards, really. So the harp is kind of almost been revived as part of the traditional Irish music culture. And then concertina is an instrument that was invented, I believe, in Germany in about the mid 19th century. The accordion is a late 19th century Italian and German instrument. The concert flute, the wooden flute that we now kind of call the Irish flute, it's called the concert flute because at one point it was the main It was the instrument that was used in all like European orchestral music. And in the late 19th century, a much more efficient and easier to play in tune system was invented. So all of these old wooden flutes became obsolete in huge numbers very quickly. So they became an affordable instrument. They were essentially offloaded. And when they came to Ireland, a lot of musicians just took the silver keys off them and closed up the holes with wax to kind of make them into like a sideways version of the penny whistle. So basically, all of these instruments, including, the harp and the uilleann pipes, which the uilleann pipes is really only developed from, the modern instrument is again late 19th century. So this is a 17th century instrument, and it's been unchanged since its invention. So really the longest continuous instrument within the Irish tradition is actually fiddle. So it absolutely dominates Irish music. There's, in the school, you are in danger of being poked with a bow at any point.
Army of fiddlers.
Yeah, and it's the same in sessions as well. Like even as a fiddle player, I'll be sitting there and there's already 5 fiddles in the session, and 3 more people turn up and you're like, oh great, more fiddles.
But the nice thing is you can never have too many fiddles, flutes, but more than one harp is usually too many.
So there's a kind of a flexibility in the instrument, the 4 strings, and because it's a bowed instrument, you can kind of make it as loud or as quiet. You can play 2 strings at the same time. You can play lots of very ornate kind of runs of tune of notes, but it fits with every other instrument in one way or another. It's the most adaptable instrument. It was kind of it was even outlawed by the Catholic Church at one point because it was seen to mimic the human voice in a way that was blasphemous in many. That was the thinking at the time. Fortunately for us, they changed their position, but it is an instrument that kind of mimics the range and flexibility of the human voice. You can change the tone and pitch of every note. So it is perfectly suited to kind of adapt and fit into whatever rhythmic or tonal uniqueness that every other instrument has. So it's kind of the chameleon of all instruments, so everything goes with the fiddle, basically.
Yes.
You mentioned playing 2 strings at the same time. Do you play chords on a fiddle or just single notes?
Yeah, you can't play all 3 notes of a chord without a little bit of kind of faking. So I can play a G major chord if I drag my bow across the string. So it's kind of the first note is kind of gone by the time I've played the last note, but you can kind of fake it. Right, but
that's 2 notes.
Playing 2 notes at the same time, and what's great for me about that is that because you're only playing 2 of the notes in the chord, so you choose which 2 of the 3 notes in the chord that you want to play, and we call that voicing, so that you're not necessarily. It makes the chord a bit more ambiguous. You're able to play 2 of the 3 notes of the chord without playing the 3rd one, which allows it to kind of, it's not quite one chord or another, so it gives you a certain amount of flexibility, which allows you to kind of play with mood and tone a little bit more. So again, that's part and parcel of the flexibility. In a way, like the limitation of only being able to play 2 strings at once gives you this greater kind of harmonic freedom. So the other reason why fiddle players, you'll hear it in like American old time music as well, playing 2 strings at once, you get a lot more bang for your buck. If you're playing dance music and you've got 2 fiddle players, and they're playing in, for example, a wooden schoolroom, which they were all built for acoustic projection. When you have 10 or 20 people clattering around on those wooden floors, it raises a lot of volume, you know. So the more volume you can create with your instruments, the more you're going to penetrate through that noise and create a beat that people can dance to. So, you know, you'll find that in a lot of fiddle traditions where they just, you know, saw away at 2 strings at once, and that gives you just that little bit of extra.
Are they always the same 2 strings or any 2 strings?
It depends on the chord. You know, it depends on the chord. But, you know, certain patterns, again, you know, going back to kind of, you know, how we tend to play within certain keys, some keys suit those strings more than others, you know. So the more you can kind of utilize the limitations of the instrument, the stronger you can kind of make the sound. You know, you trying to do stuff that doesn't work very well, obviously isn't going to be that successful. So things that do work well tend to get used over and over and over again.
These are great questions. Do we have any more? Oh, yes.
So I noticed that it sounded like a very upbeat, like dance kind of music, like celebration. Is this like the only type of music that you guys like Irish and the Irish people play?
That's a really good question, because one of the other parts of the tradition is derived from the singing tradition. So kind of nearly all of our music comes from a very old unaccompanied singing tradition, using scales that are a lot more complicated than the kind of scales that you really typically have in like Western art music, classical music, lots of quarter tones, and a very kind of, I hesitate to say it, but a kind of a wailing quality. There's in Irish, sean-nós just means old style, and it's a form of Irish singing. It's often kind of portrayed as quite nasal, and it's very ornamented, and those kinds of songs were often in the form of laments. So we do have we have dance music, we have music for uplifting happiness as well, but there is also an entire kind of area of the music that is music, literally music to cry to. There's music to dance to, music to cry to.
I know my mom is chomping at the bit to mention her favorite. So they were in ancient Ireland, they were known as Soontree, which is soothing music, Gultree, which was sad music, and Gantry, which was happy music. So if the lord of the house would call for whatever he was in the mood for. If he felt like crying, play me some Gultree.
Yeah, like Verdon sang a song in Chicago too at the Midwest competition, the Flaw, and it was about like a couple that was just starving and salmon and walking and looked like Schulenstein. And then like his wife dies in the third verse. He buries Eileen, and then like he's skinning bones, and then the famine, and then he comes to America, and she's practicing this at Repsu, and she's practicing it like 5 times a day, and she's just like, and I need to go and all that. I'm like, that's sad. Such a
never forget.
And then when we went to the singing competitions of Ireland, we could hear the difference of like what they had to choose us like a sort of a
Right, a lively or
a
a
lively tune,
yeah.
a happy tune, and then it was like, let's bring it to sad.
I think that it's, you know, some of the cultural differences, you know, as, you know, when Ireland, you know, was colonized and became an English-speaking country, obviously, you know, that changed the culture. You know, it affected the way that people express themselves differently. There are different ideas that, you know, may exist in one language and not exist in another. And one of the one of the things that the British found not particularly tasteful about the Irish was that they saw them as being excessively emotional. They saw them as being too connected to their emotions and not rational enough. And I think that, you know, that there are certain aspects of the culture that, you know, you can see these differences, that, like, you know, being moved to tears by a beautiful piece of music is not seen as a bad thing within our, you know, that's a mark of the quality of the music and the musicianship, and that, you know, the music to cry to, you know, music that makes you feel sad and allows you to feel those emotions is very much a part of the musical culture. And so, you know, we have a type of music that comes from songs, and we call them slow airs, and a lot of them are laments, and, you know, and they're very, you know, they're pretty dramatic, and you know, and often, you know, there's one particular musician, every time I hear him play an air on the pipes, like, it always makes me cry, like, every single time. There's just something about the way that he shapes the music, and, you know, that's quite a normal thing in Irish music. So yeah, I think that's really, you know, really important. It's not always, you don't necessarily always want to come and make everybody cry at lunchtime, but, you know, we have been known to do it, you know. Yeah.
I'm kind of off. I used to be a musician, but I'm primarily a dancer, and so I was accustomed to the jig and the polka. I've done those. Slide I was less familiar with, but I have heard similar tunes. Are there any other traditional Irish dance music besides those three kinds of polka?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot. There's slip jigs, hornpipes.
We'll start with the jigs.
Okay.
There's hop jigs, which we started off with.
Yeah, those are the ones I
Kind of 1, 2, 3, and then there's double jigs, 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then there's triple jigs or slip jigs, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then there's single jigs, which are 12, 8. I think that might be all the jigs. Then there's, in 4/4, there are marches, barn dances, flings, hornpipes, reels. Then
So there's sort of the ones that have kind of stood the test of time, and then a whole bunch that we don't really know the dances for the music anymore. Though we do have a friend, a dancer in Boston. Her name is Jackie O'Reilly. If you look her up, she has kind of unearthed a bunch of old documents, and she's trying to figure out what the notation actually meant in terms of movement. So she's trying to find the old dances that have died.
And then I guess there's waltzes, and then there's also a lot of these tune types originated outside of Ireland. Like, we think that the slip jig, the 9/8 triple jig, we think that originated in Ireland. It's not a very common time signature outside of, like, Eastern Europe. But, like, reels, for example, originally came from Scotland. Hornpipes originally came from England. Polkas originally came from Bohemia, I think.
Yeah, there you go. She was like, please say it. Give us some credit.
We have a nerd. We have a history nerd. Mazurkas, I think from Scandinavia, possibly. I'm not sure. Somebody feel free to correct me. Over time, these tunes tend to get, at first it might be a novelty. It might be seen as something that is new and interesting. And then as more and more people come to enjoy that and start dancing to it, then people will start composing their own tunes within that form. So if you go back to the late 1700s, like, all of the reels are clearly Scottish tunes. And then they start to kind of change. A part gets added on here, or somebody kind of reinterprets it, and then at a certain point people start composing their own Irish reels, you know, and that became very popular. So like, there's lots and lots of tunes. You know, most Irish musicians' repertoire would consist of jigs and reels. That's the main body of it. Jigs, reels, and then kind of hornpipes for variety. And then
we play all the weird stuff.
Yeah, and then some people like the kind of the weird tunes, the more obscure ones. I mean, I love polkas and slides. You know, but you know, there's like mainstream Irish music is kind of jigs and reels. I mean, it's not that mainstream, obviously, by our standards, mainstream. But yeah, there's a lot of, and then there are regional variations as well. So like in Donegal, up in the northwest of Ireland, which is still a strong Irish-speaking region. There's a great historic connection to Scotland. So some of the Scottish forms of music that don't really exist in most of Irish music, like the strathspey is a kind of a 4/4 type of tune from Scotland, and there's a very similar type of tune called a Highland, which is it's basically the same kind of tune, but they have their own sort of version of it. But they don't get played outside of that small region of Ulster. So there's kind of, you know, within Ireland, there's a lot of regional variation. As well as, you know, the kind of everybody plays all of these types of tunes, but there's a bunch of other kind of more obscure, fun ones as well.
Well, you're a great crowd.
Yeah.
Should we do one for the road?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll play one more tune, and then we have an album on Bandcamp. I don't know if we actually brought any physical copies.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Be on the lookout for the tune book when it is published.
Finish up with some reels.
Yep.
To the father already.
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
So just before we go, just on behalf of UMSL Global, thank you so much for your support this year, and have a happy Thanksgiving and holiday season, whatever holiday you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate any holidays, have a good time. And we're very fortunate, of course, to have these world-class musicians living here in our midst and performing for us. And also, I think one of the nice things about a university is that we have lectures and things. So we have today the kind of a wonderful coming together of the lecture, where we find out about the art and the craft of music and the history of the tradition, but also brilliant playing. So just one more round of applause for